Today on the repair of 6 show lasers part 8, the 7th show laser. It's wonderful Cittadini, it's the fourth Cittadini to come, and is, well, it's here because it has a problem with the green. And it says that the green doesn't blank at all, so it doesn't shut off. So we're going to turn it on and see what the problem is. And over here we got a safety beamy shieldy thing of black metal, and it's pointed down just in case the laser beam decides to take off the paint. Let's turn it on and see what happens. And now we wait. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. The screws aren't on. That's nice, convenient. Oh. Alright, so looks like we got some of the interlock wires disconnected. That's no good. A little wet here. Oh, they bypassed it. Okay, hold on. Let's undoing that bottom switch. Should have reset it, so hold on that switch and see what I get. Actually, we can slide down the case and see if that's been bypassed. Let's see if it initiates. It should in a couple of seconds. Hopefully. So that needs to be rewired up for sure. Waiting. Aha. And oh, wait, yeah, we do. That's quite a bit of laser light. Dangerous beams. Well, that'll do. Alright. Wait, I weren't kidding. It is stuck on. See if poking around in the driver will change that at all. Nope. Cable connections. Nope. Let's see if it's a positive phase signal being generated by the driver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook the unhook the show card, the scan field card from the green laser driver. If that changes anything. So we turn that off. Alright. Scan field card output disconnected. Okay, well, let's give it a reset, see what happens. See if it's still stuck on. If it's still stuck on, it's a driver problem. If it shuts off, then it's a scan fail control board problem. So this will answer at least that question. Will it come on? Yes, it does. It does still come on, indeed. Okay, well, driver problem. Next step is to take off the back of the laser, I guess. I need to get access to the green laser driver. Things don't get lighter. Oh yeah, there's a lot of moisture. You can see here. Go for a zoom. Line kind of action. You can see all of the yucky stuff. Ew. It's wet. Why is it wet? Probably more fog juice. Ha ha. Then now you can take a look at the laser driver here. Is there any obvious damage? You can see. Nothing yet. Gotta get it open a little more. And we'll come back to that then. With the board pulled out and the laser taken apart, I have found one part that seems to be destroyed. And that right here is what's left of this 4148 high speed signal diode. That would do it. Okay, that's the cathode and that's the anode. I looked at another board and I've already pulled out another high speed signal diode to match. So I'm going to put that in. Hopefully that fixes the issues with this laser driver. So that should be really easy. And if this doesn't work, there's another problem somewhere. Alright, now for the new diode time. See, I prepared the cathode. Solder. Here, solder. I should probably verify those pins on the video before I go and plug this in. Everything is still taken apart. Not going to put it together until we do a test. I think we're ready for a test. Do a reset like this. Excellent. Get the software running. Hopefully we don't go blind. And now the laser works. Find out. Waiting. Yes, you do one of these. Waiting, quick fix. Cover enter. Brightness. We got outputs. Enable laser. Don't tell me about things I don't care about. Haha! It works! We got the green laser working the way it should be. Well, that's excellent. Cool. Just gotta put this laser back together. Wow, that was really easy. Yes. Well, that repair went faster than I expected it to. It looks like replacing that 4148 signal dial was the only thing I needed to do to get the green blinking to work on that laser driver. Thus making for what's turning out to be a pretty short video. That's looking really good though. I am not dissatisfied with that result. Well, I can't have short videos now, can I? So what I think I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pull out some random laser stuff and talk about it for a while. Why? Because I can. So let's get on to that. On to some more complicated laser topics. So the first thing I want to talk about is why high-end show laser companies favor using a knife edge arrangement of lower power laser diodes over using one higher power laser diode or a laser module. I have two lasers here, each one of them utilizing the 650 nanometer red C-mount style laser diode, which is mostly characterized by the larger column emitting lens in the front due to the fact that the laser diode itself has a larger emitting surface. The biggest problem with a lot of red laser diodes is divergent qualities of the laser beams themselves. I'm going to turn on both these lasers, one of these lasers being 500 milliwatts, the other one being a 1 watt laser. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the light and I am going to get some fog in the air. And we can look at the beam profiles as they leave the laser aperture. So right away we can already see that the beams are really large as they leave the laser modules themselves. The profile of the beam being about 5 millimeters by 5 millimeters, which is quite wide for a laser beam. The other thing we can take a look at is overall divergence of the laser beam, thus being in this case horrible. There's a mirror that is about 7 foot behind me, and I'm going to bounce the lasers off that mirror and onto this back metal plate behind the two lasers, and we can take a look at the beams that hit that mirror, or sorry, hit that plate. As you can see, both those beams are quite wide. I'm going to turn on the light again for a better contrast. So if we take a look at the actual beams themselves coming off the plate or going onto the plate, we go from about 5 by 5 millimeters to about 15 by 20 millimeters, which is 4 to 5 times larger just over a 14-foot distance. That's terrible. Let's take a look at a newer 638 to 635 nanometer laser, most commonly made by Sharp and Oclaro. The one that I'm using in this laser pointer is the 700 milliwatt 638 Oclaro. So this beam starts off at being about, let's see, where's my mirror? Beam starts off out at about 1 millimeter by about 4 millimeters, and over the course of 14 foot ends up being a beam that's about 4 millimeters by about 20 millimeters. So quite a long, narrow laser output. A lot of these things can be corrected by two means, either using a fast axis correction lens on the laser diode emitter itself, or by using the anamorphic prism pair. Let's take a look at another 650 nanometer laser. This being one pulled from a DVD burner. This is about a 400 milliwatt laser beam. Let's take a look at the divergent properties of this lower powered laser beam. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn on this laser, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bounce it off the back. The beam that comes out of the laser aperture itself is about 2 millimeters by 3 millimeters. And let's get it propped up with something. Okay. And we can take a look at the beam, and we can see that the beam here is about 4 millimeters by 5 millimeters. So the beam itself is a lot tighter over a longer distance. When you consider things like the polarized beam splitting cube, we can take two of these 400 milliwatt laser outputs and we can combine them, one being 90 degrees off of the other, giving us 800 milliwatts in that same beam profile. So when we take a look at something like this as a 1 watt laser beam, and when we can get 800 milliwatts in a form factor like this over the same distance, we can start to see where the advantages of using lower power laser diodes in specific configurations gets quite beneficial. We can also take a look at and see that overall beam divergence is quite small. So figure if we take the two of them, use a polarized beam splitting cube, we can get the two 400 milliwatts to line up, 800 milliwatts. We can put another 800 milliwatts right next to it, giving us already 1.6 watts. And if we put two more on top of that, we can get a 3.2 watt laser with a beam profile of about 6 millimeters by 8 millimeters, versus having a 1 watt laser with a beam profile that is 20 by 15 millimeters and with a much lower factor in divergence, which is exactly why the higher end laser companies tend to use the lower powered lasers in the knife edge configuration. This simply ensures that the beam quality overall is much thinner at a greater length of projection. Let's open up a couple of C-mount style 650 nanometer laser heads and see their construction a little bit. Let's take apart the 500 milliwatt 650 nanometer laser head and see what's inside. This is probably going to be a fairly typical assembly where on top of the heatsink on the back where the fan is, there's going to be a little circular Peltier junction that cools down the C-mount laser diode that'll probably be right on top of that. Hopefully there is a FAC lens on this laser diode or one of the other 650 nanometer lasers. That way you can see what a FAC lens is a little more. Alright, take out the screws. Here we have the bottom, and we have look at that weird looking screws. Alright, cool, well I can handle that. Really weird looking screws. There's a surprise in every box. Yep. So let's take a look at the little cross section here. Here we have the back plate with the heatsink, and the rest of the case just connects to the outside right here. And we have we have the thermoelectric cooler right here. I was more interested to see if there was a FAC lens on it. This one does have a FAC lens on it. Now let me point out what a FAC lens is. If you can see very carefully, there's this little bar that's glued from here to here, and it's basically a little cylinder that goes over that. It's called a fast axis correction lens. Magnifying glass. Oh, that'll work. There you go. You can see that little cylindrical lens glued on. So there's 2 points of glue, and there's a little laser diode with the little gold bond wires on the top. And on the other side of the assembly, all you have there is the large collimating lens in the front, and the threads for that. So not much in this assembly. Let's go ahead and put this back together, and we'll look into the other ones. Here's another 500 milliwatt, 650 nanometer C-mount style laser head, and we're going to take this one apart. This one is dead. So maybe we can see what failed, but it looks like a catastrophic optical damage given the output. This one will also probably be a similar construction as to the last one. So the same stacked arrangement where it's going to be all mounted onto a thermoelectric cooler, little Peltier junction. And let's see what we got in here. Little Allen wrenches, it looks like. A 2mm? Yeah, let's try that. Oops, missed it. What? Gotta be kidding me. There's a tube in there? Alright, well we know the problem with this laser. Oh jeez. That they literally like used a PVC tube for that. That's a little thermal sensor. Something. What is that? A little Phillips screw? It is a little Phillips screw. Is there another one on this side? There is. Well, we can take the tube off. I can't believe that. That tube. That's funny. You know, the problem is it's a cheap laser. Okay, I assume just pull. Hey, that's literally a terrible laser. What do we got inside here? I got a little 15 by 15 millimeter thermoelectric square cooler. Wire coming up, and yeah, the same FAC lens on the front. Take a look at that one a little bit. We'll expect to see the same exact thing. So that same glass rod glued onto the front, which is the fast axis correction lens. Let's see what the output looks like on a piece of paper with the laser. To determine whether it's low laser driver power or a just fried laser junction. But, I'm assuming it's fried. And we'll get the dirty light and bad output if it's fried. Plug it in, plug it in. I got something. But not much. So when catastrophic optical damage happens, what results is we call it dirty light or dark light. I'm going to turn off the shop light. We can take a better look at what's coming out. But it's definitely signs of a bad laser junction. So definitely a case of catastrophic optical damage, it looks like. We can see just how terrible that looks. Oh, bad emitter. Should be a nice rectangle. So definitely a failure of the junction. Ew. What a piece of crap. Let's take a look at the glass laser head, which is a different construction altogether. Let's open up the 1 watt 650 nanometer laser head. And this one I got back around 2011, 2012. And it cost like $600 back in that day. So quite expensive, and it served me well. So they're kind of a piece of junk at this point. It also has a little bit of damage on the emitter, so it's not exactly in perfect condition anymore, even though it still kind of lasers. And it's a pretty typical construction, like you would see in like a regular DPSS laser head. So not much going on. The construction we can see is the little thermoelectric cooler. You can kind of see the white outline here. And then the laser diode, the C-mount laser diode, is going to be underneath that plate. So I'm going to remove that plate. And there it is. You can see that little C-mount laser diode right in there, and it's kind of sideways. It does have the same FAC lens on the front. In fact, I think we can use a collimating lens as a magnifier for this one. Let's see. Hey, we can. Cool. Yep. Same little FAC lens right in the front of the laser diode itself. Yeah, you can see the thermoelectric junction underneath. Not all too much going on inside of this. Let's put this back together. Ta-da! On to a much more complicated topic, one that's often misunderstood and misrepresented, and it makes my blood boil every time I see it as such, and that is the interaction of light with polarizing films. The first misrepresentation is the gate analogy. Well, here I have a little gate, and here I have a ball chain, which will be representing the electric field of light. And the analogy is that when the electric field is parallel to the bars, it's allowed to transmit the light through. Well, when the electric field is perpendicular to the bars, it's canceled out. Now, this is incorrect. What's actually going on, and we can't take a look at these as bars in a gate. We have to take a look at these as an array of antennas. And we can see this in wire grid polarizers, and the same thing applies for the polarizing filters, which are just long chains of polyvinyl alcohol that have a iodine dopant in them. So what they do is they stretch out the material, and it gives it this long chains. So how can we tell that the light is actually going through at a perpendicular angle to the bars? That is very simple to do, actually. First, we have to find a source of light of which we absolutely understand the electrical field characteristics and polarization thereof, and the most common one is the reflection of light off a non-metallic surface, which gives us S-polarized light. And conveniently, we have something right in front of us that'll do this, thus being this glass plate on the desk. Now, the polarized light that is coming off of this glass plate is going to be polarized parallel to the surface. So the light's coming in, bounces off towards the camera, and our electric field is going to be in this fashion, so back and forth on this plane. Now I'm going to take a piece of polarizing film, and we're going to see exactly what the polarization effects with the polarizing film is. So here I have a piece of polarizing film, and if I rotate the polarizing film, you can see that the light is either blocked or transmitted through. Very easy to see. The electric field passes through in this direction most easily. So I'm going to take a Sharpie and I'm going to mark down the electrical field interactions, which is along this way. So there it is, clearly marked out. Now, take a look at the little bars here. We have to treat these bars as the chains, or the grain in the material. The grain of the material is going to be most easily fractured along this way. So for example, if I go to tear it, it's not going to be easily torn this way, but it will be most easily torn this way. With this piece of polarizing film, we can test that out. So if I go to tear it in the same manner as this, we can see what happens, which is that it's not torn very easily at all. Now let's try to tear it perpendicular to the electric field, and it tears absolutely perfectly. So we can easily tell that the bars are going in this way, which is perpendicular to the electric field that is coming off this piece of glass right here. I will leave a video below down in the description that shows this exact same characteristic using microwave radiation and a bar array, a metal bar array, in the description below. Hopefully that'll help you understand it a little bit more easy. But that's the first misconception. Another misconception about polarizing films is that they only block or allow light to pass through. Here I have a very simple setup. It has a white LED here and 3 linear polarizing films, each in a little bracket of which I can rotate. Let's take a look how these polarizing films actually affect the light. Now looking through these 2 polarizers right here, we can see that the light passes through, and when I turn this one, the light gets completely blacked out at one point. This is because the polarizing filter here is at a 90-degree perpendicular offset to this polarizing filter here, thus blocking out the entirety of the light passing through. However, if I put a third polarizer between those 2, we can see that some of the light comes back, and we can change the amount that passes through with the rotation of that one in the middle of the 2 polarizers. So, does a polarizing filter really have an effect on the source of light? To demonstrate that a little bit better, I have a laser set up here. Now this laser is a perfectly linearly polarized light source, and I'm going to put a polarizing filter and a piece of paper in front of that so we can see the beam a little bit more. Now here we can see the laser dot, and if I take this polarizing film, I can put it in the path of the beam, we can see that the laser beam goes away. Now, if a polarizer film functions on the premise that it either allows light to pass through or it is blocked by absorption, then we shouldn't be able to alter the polarization state of the laser light source here. However, if we put in the polarizer between the 2, we can indeed get some of the laser light back. And in fact, special optics are used just for this fashion. In laser optics, these are called wave rotator plates, and are used in conjunction with the polarized beam splitting cube. Let's take a look at how this information and how knowing the polarization state of your polarizing filter can help you with determining the polarization state of your laser light source. Okay, so why all the talk about polarization? Well, it's really important in the field of lasers. No pun intended. Now that you can identify the polarization characteristics of a piece of polarizing film, you can now use a marked piece of polarizing film to identify the characteristics of a laser light source. And this is actually very important, as I said. One of the things that I want to talk about is the polarization characteristics of a laser diode. For that, I've made a little styrofoam mock-up. And most often you'll see diagrams that say the P-type material, the active region, and the N-type material. And the illustration will list off something like this, where the electrons come in and they bounce back and forth between the two materials, up and down like this, resulting in an electric field of polarization coming out of the emitting aperture of the laser diode in the vertical direction. Let's take a look at two lasers and see if this is always the case. The first laser I'll be using is the 638 nanometer oclaro laser diode, and the junction is in this manner. So I'm going to shine it through the piece of polarizing film and see if it's a electrically vertical in polarization, which it is. And if I rotate it, it'll dim out. This is what's known as a transverse magnetic mode laser diode. Let's take a look at another laser. Same thing, the laser diode junction is in this orientation. But is the electrical polarization characteristics also vertical? Well, let's shine it through the polarizing film and find out. Doesn't look like a lot is getting through. But what happens if I rotate it 90 degrees? Well, we can see a lot more light is passed. This is what's known as a transverse electric mode laser diode. And the output is actually parallel to the way that the junction materials are stacked. So there is a difference between the polarization aspects in different laser diodes, and this is very important when using optics such as a polarized beam splitting cube. In fact, let's talk a little bit more about the polarized beam splitting cube. Here's a polarized beam splitting cube. As you can see, I've drawn two black dots to indicate where the two halves of the polarized beam splitting cube are. You can think of this as two glass prisms that are joined together to formulate a cube. In the area where the prisms meet is a little thin film dielectric, or even a little stack of them, and what that does is it reflects off the S-wave polarization state of light, just like as you saw the glass plate earlier. If we take a look at the angle of incidence on the beam polarizing cube, we have to think about it in this manner. So it's the same way. If the light were to come in this way with the electrical field like this, it would bounce off the plane of incidence on the inside of the cube and come off. So that means that in this arrangement, the electrical field would be up and down to reflect off at 90 degrees instead of passing through. Here I have a 473 nanometer laser, and you can see the laser dot right there. And this polarized beam splitting cube is designed to work with that frequency of light. Here I have a marked piece of polarizing film indicating the direction of the electric field. So if I put this in the path of the beam, we can see that the laser light still goes through. If I rotate it 90 degrees perpendicular, it gets blocked, indicating that the electric field is traveling in the vertical manner. So the beam should be reflected off the incidence angle on the inside of the cube, 90 degrees, and it should go that way. Which it does. It might work a little bit better this way. These work one way better than the other. I'll flip it around. Yep, and it does. So how does a polarized beam splitting cube work? Well, it's actually really simple. Let's kind of quickly build one. To do that, I am going to use two prisms, and these were pulled from a dichroic cross cube that I got from a projector. And if we take the two halves together like this, we can formulate the same angle. What happens when we shine the light through it? We'll use a laser pointer to demonstrate this. This laser is the transverse electric mode, so the electric field is going in this manner. If I shine it through like this, we can see that it reflects off, but no matter what I do, it only goes at that 90-degree angle. And that is because of the total internal reflection of this particular prism piece by itself. Now remember when I said that there's a thin film, a dielectric layer in there. A dielectric component that you can put in here to try is actually vegetable glycerin, which is a pretty good dielectric solution. So I'm going to put a drop of glycerin on the surface of the glass right here. And then we'll join the two halves of the prism together, just like in a just like in a beam splitting cube. You can see how the glycerin fills up the area in between. This will act like our dielectric surface, and this should help transmit those S polarization waves. See what happens. And now you can see that there are two dots, and if I rotate it where the magnetic field is perpendicular, it goes through, and when it's parallel, it starts to reflect off. We can increase this effect by adding more surfaces that are dielectric in there, which is why I say that there can be more than one stack. I'm going to separate the two halves, and I'm going to insert a thin glass plate in between them, thus giving us two dielectric surfaces of reflection. Now with two dielectric surfaces, we should see an increase of this effect, which we do. Pretty cool, eh? Polarizing beam splitting cubes. Not as complicated as you think. I think that wraps it up for this video series. It's been a lot of fun for me working on these lasers, and I hope that it's been an enjoyable process for you guys watching and learning about some of the laser technologies yourself. And as you can see, I have a lot more laser technology to cover in other videos, some of which I already have. So go ahead and check those out if you're interested in laser technology or optical technologies in general. Seeing this right in front of me makes me so excited for what's coming up in the future for myself and for what I can share with you guys. So it's definitely something to look forward to. Take a look at things a little bit more. I would definitely say things are going to get extremely interesting for me, and I can't wait for it. I hope you guys can't either. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, stay tuned for more.